Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Fire and Ice podcast. Today is Friday, September 8th. My name is Chris Crawford. Thanks so much for joining us. I am joined today by my buddy Drew Silva. Drew, how's your morning going?
Awesome, man. Just looking over my betting plays from that Chiefs-Lions game. Sky Moore over. Oh wait, no. Kadarius Toney receptions. Oh wait. Wait. I missed what happened?
Oh man, I hope you
That
didn't
was a
have,
bit. That was a bit.
Yeah, it's a good bit. It's a good bit. I hope you didn't have
Thank you.
over on Travis Kelce either, which was the most obvious of obvious not plays, by the way. The fact anyone had any hope of that actually happening was not there. I felt terrible for Kadarius Toney. If you had over 3 dropped passes, I think you hit the over on that one. That was pretty brutal.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
What I was looking at.
That's what you were looking at for sure. We're going to be talking about some baseball. We're going to be offering you some streaming options. We're going to be offering you some stacks for your daily fantasy play. We're also going to brag about some pitching that we picked up yesterday. So that was nice. But most importantly, let's talk about the fact that the website, Drew, is live. Sportstopia.io is now live. Tons of great information there. You're going to be able to get daily rankings. You're going to get some options for prize picks. You're going to get a whole lot of great stuff. Cannot recommend it enough. It's sportstopia.io. All right. So now that we've gotten the important plug out of the way, let's take a look. Drew, is there any weather well, I know there's injury stuff that we got to talk about, but is there any weather stuff that we got to be taking an eye on today?
Yeah, not really actually. This first afternoon game at Wrigley Field. We love a Friday afternoon Wrigley Field game, but it looks like there's a chance of some kind of delay and I doubt a postponement. It looks like it's going to blow through, but like a 23% chance of rain at game time with a lot of wind. If they do get that one in, the balls could be actually the wind is blowing in, so the balls wouldn't be flying. A little bit of chance of rain at Dodgers at Nationals, Brewers at Yankees, but nothing like that really screams out postponement. I think we should be pretty safe to at least get these games all in on this full Friday slate, even if there is a delay or two across the board.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. And of course, injury-wise, like I said, there's a lot going on here, but the biggest one here is you're going to have to keep an eye on Mookie Betts. Leaves on crutches. It does sound like they have avoided structural damage. It's initial x-rays coming back negative, but a guy who is in the MVP hunt and then some is somebody that you've got to make sure is actually in the lineup before you put in. And there's a bunch of other guys that we got to keep an eye on today.
Yeah, Austin Riley sticks out. He was scratched from, or actually just held out of the Braves lineup for their series finale on Thursday against the Cardinals because of an illness. They said he was vomiting all night. Too much information on Wednesday. Manager Brian Snitker said it seemed like just kind of a 24-hour type of stomach bug. So there's a chance he could play in Friday's series opener at Pittsburgh, but that's something to keep an eye on. Alex Verdugo missed Wednesday's series finale against the Rays due to hamstring discomfort. It's unclear if he's going to be ready to go in Boston's big series opener against the Orioles on Friday. Keep an eye out on that. Tim Anderson of the White Sox was scratched from Wednesday's series finale against the Royals because of a stiff neck. We'll see if he gets back in action Friday at Detroit. Anderson also missed some time with a neck issue last month. Like I think he missed 2 games. It was right around the time of his suspension, which probably will hopefully helped him heal. But the fact that he's still dealing with it right now suggests that it's more than just a little day-to-day thing. Lane Thomas has that sore back that has been lingering, and an MRI showed only inflammation. But the fact that he was sent for an MRI suggests it was, he was in some significant discomfort. He's been one of the best hitters for the Nationals all year. So keep an eye out on that. DJ Stewart has been really good for the Mets, bringing a ton of power, but he missed the last 2 games with a back issue and would be questionable for Friday. Hunter Renfroe dealing with a hamstring issue now on the Reds, not the Angels. We'll see if he's in there for Cincinnati on Friday. And then Shohei Ohtani continues to be absent with an oblique issue as he decides what to do with his injured throwing elbow. He could be facing an early shutdown. I almost feel like he should just shut himself down. He's kind of making the calls right now with free agency looming. And then some other big news beyond Mookie Betts. Adolis Garcia, the
Mm,
Rangers' dynamic outfielder, was placed on the injured list Thursday with a strained patellar tendon, they're calling it, in his right knee. He's going in for some exams. They're not exactly sure how much time he's going to miss, but it sounds like it could be a pretty significant injury. Could be down for a while. Evan Carter getting the call to replace him. Carter had a really brief. He was just promoted to AAA like at the beginning of this month,
yeah,
but now rises all the way to the majors. A second round pick in 2020 out of a Tennessee high school. What are we thinking here? I already locked him in as one of my potential value plays,
sure.
because I think he's going to be relatively cheap, and I think he's going to get right in the lineup. There's some speed there. There's some pop there. Um, he hit at all levels of the minors. I don't think he would be up this year if they didn't suddenly lose Adolis Garcia, and the Rangers have dealt with a couple of other major injuries as well. Are you excited about Evan Carter? There's been a lot of these, man, guys jumping basically from double A right to the majors.
Yeah, I'm probably more cautiously optimistic than super excited about it. I think my issue with Carter is going to be there's a lot of things he does well. I'm not sure there's anything he does great. So I don't know if you're looking at like a fantasy star, especially out of the gate. Like when you're talking about the 2080 scale, certainly a chance to hit for average 55 to 60, 55 to 60 power, probably closer to 55 in that regard, and maybe even 50 will provide some stolen bases. He's that type of guy who I think can do a little bit of everything, but these guys tend to be better real life players than fantasy players, right? These are the type of guys that, like, the guy who can hit 275 and give you 20 homers and 75 to 80 RBIs and 15 to 20 stolen bases. There's certainly value in that, but he's never your outfielder one or your outfielder two. That's more of the guy that you want as your outfielder three, maybe even a guy that you have on the bench and you're using as a matchup dependent type of guy. And especially early on, I do think there might be some struggles. There's no question about the talent. I do remember that a lot of people were wondering who the heck is this guy when he got drafted. There was very little information on him. Seemed like just kind of like a signing thing. Well, it looks like the Rangers knew what the heck they were talking about here, because he has quickly become one of the better outfield prospects in baseball. I do think he's a better real life guy than a fantasy guy, but there is certainly value in that. All right, let's take a look at some stacks. I think there's some pretty good ones this time, Drew. Yesterday we were kind of, by the way, good call on not stacking the Mariners when you were talking about not wanting to do that. It was an excellent play because the Mariners got all of one run. We'll talk about why that was enough in just 1 second. But today I think there is some excellent streaming options. Who are you looking to go through this week?
Yeah, I like the Dodgers. Even I'm going to remove Mookie Betts from my stack, obviously.
Sure.
We'll call that they're playing at the Nationals on Friday after finishing up a series against the Marlins. We'll call this like my pay up stack. It's got some more expensive bats like Freddie Freeman, Will
Mm-hmm.
Smith, but I don't know. There's some value here too with Chris Taylor, Ahmed Rosario. The Dodgers rolled to a 10-0 victory in Thursday's series finale at Miami. I like them to keep it working in Friday's series opener at Washington. They're facing young left-hander Mackenzie Gore, who is generally taking a very positive step forward this season, but the Nationals are starting to closely monitor his workload. He's had a big innings jump this year. It's probably not going to be a very deep start, and their bullpen is one that you want to attack right now,
Yeah.
and really attack all year. We'll go righty heavy with our choices here. Freeman, Smith, Taylor, Rosario, I think gets a start as well. Mackenzie Gore's actually fared pretty well against righties this year on the whole, part of that encouraging development that I talked about, but he's prone to giving up hard contact to them. And this is a Dodgers lineup that is capable of a lot of hard contact, even though it's missing pieces. It's going to be without Mookie Betts, without JD Martinez. I think they roll into the nation's capital and take care of business this weekend to further build that runaway lead in the National League West standings. Currently 13 games up on the Diamondbacks for first place, so they could clinch that thing about the middle of this month.
Yeah, that's it'll be interesting to see who clinches first, Atlanta or the Dodgers. Both of them are just absolutely rolling through this season. Drew, I'm going to take a pitcher against your Cardinals, and I'm going to be taking someone who has your first name, too. That seems like a double mean one, but I'm going to take the Reds against the Cardinals, which, look, the Cardinals have had a lot of success this in previous seasons, not a lot of success this year. And while I do think Drew Rom was a very nice pickup in the Jack Flaherty trade, who offers some back-end starter ability, hasn't been particularly effective so far at the major league level. Has one decent start and then a couple of clunkers. And the Cincinnati playing for their playoff lives, I like that lineup. I like going with Christian Encarnacion Strand, Spencer Steer, Ellie De La Cruz, and I'll go TJ Friedel as well to give me a hit and maybe a stolen base as well. Like all four of those options. Again, I think it's more about the fact that Rom just hasn't shown me that he's ready to be an effective starter every time out. And these guys have put up some awfully nice numbers. Steer especially impressed me in that series against my Seattle Mariners not too long ago. All four of these guys have a chance, I think, to have big fantasy nights.
I think you were referencing Andrew Abbott as sharing a first name with me.
No. Drew Rom is sharing a name.
That flew over my head because
holy whoa.
Well, I'm not an Andrew, and it's not because I don't want to be called Andrew. It's Drew on my birth certificate. Now I'm gonna have to look up if Drew Rom is an actual Drew, because whenever I meet someone that's Drew, my first question is, well, is your name actually Andrew? And I think I've asked probably 1,000 people that, and I've only gotten like 2 where it's actually their real name on their birth certificate is Drew, and I'm the other one. So you're a lucky guy to be on a show with me and be able to talk to me, in general.
That's right.
No, but I'm fine with the Cardinals getting Drew Rom for Jack Flaherty. Makes sense to get a cost-controlled young arm, but I'm not like bullish on him right now. Hopefully, I'll become a little more bullish on him in the long term. My other stack, I called my Dodgers choice the pay up stack. This will be the pay less stack, like the shoe store. Giants versus Rockies. Giants hosting the Rockies. If you want to like pay up to grab one of the top starters on the board, Kodai Senga or even Blake Snell, and you need some budget bats, I'd look to San Francisco as they host left-hander Ty Black and the Rockies. Ty Black gave up 5 earned runs on 9 hits and 3 walks last time out against the Blue Jays. San Francisco can go heavily right-handed in this one. I like Tyro Estrada, Austin Slater, JD Davis, Casey Schmidt. Slater probably batting leadoff as he's done against lefties. Estrada right behind him, hopefully in the 2-hole. I'd like that 1-2 attack at the top of that lineup. I'd consider Wilmer Flores as an attractive option as well. Maybe Mitch Haniger. A lot of good value plays in this one with the right-handed bats that the Giants can put out there. That offense has been pretty brutal lately. They had a stretch of scoreless games, and they're on a 6-game losing streak, but this team's only 2.5 games back of the third NL wildcard spot despite this downturn. It's a must-win game. It's a must-win series for the Giants if they want to keep their postseason dreams alive. Or, I don't know, maybe you can limp into the NL side of the playoff bracket on a losing streak. It is kind of a mess, as we've talked about on previous shows. Maybe the Diamondbacks can run away with it, that third NL wildcard spot. I'd say they're the best equipped to do it. Welcome to the show. Jordan Lawler got his first major league hit in his debut Thursday at Wrigley Field. We talked about Jordan Lawler on Thursday's show. But yeah, if you're looking for a low-cost stack, I target the Giants, as they host a bad on the road and bad at home Rockies team.
Before I give you my other stack, our producer Sean tells us that he is a Drew according to Wikipedia and not an Andrew. You have a new favorite player. You've got time to go down and get that jersey.
I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to do my own research on that one.
Fair enough, but we appreciate our producer Sean looking into that one. I am going to stack against Luis Severino whenever I can, and today that option is the Brewers. Look, Severino threw at the end of August a couple of really good starts against the Tigers and Nationals, but it's 13 2/3 innings of shutout baseball, and even with that, He lowered his ERA to 6.75, and he was not effective against the Houston Astros whatsoever in his last one, 4 innings of 4-run baseball with a couple of home runs. At one point, Severino looked like he was going to be maybe a top of the rotation fantasy option. He's anything but that, at least right now. I'm only going to go with 3 this time, but I'm going to take Wilson Contreras, Willy Adames, and Christian Yelich. That's going to be my kind of expensive stack, but I'm a little more efficient because I'm only going with 3 instead of 4. Brewers, of course, I talk about it a lot, but I like motivated teams playing at this point. Brewers are playing for a chance to not only win that division, but do a little bit of damage in the postseason as well. So I'll take those 3 guys, and I like my chances against a pitcher that just hasn't been effective in Luis Severino.
The optimizer likes the Brewers in general. Like it spit out Colin Ray multiple times as like a decent low cost starting pitching, person to attack, and it likes a lot of their hitters at Yankee Stadium. Which, hey man, I kind of get it. Like, and I'd even look at like some betting lines on that one and see if you can grab a motivated Brewers team rolling into the Bronx. I think that's a game to attack that not maybe many people will be necessarily looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at some pitching options. But before we do that, Drew, we got to pat ourselves on the back because we picked Ryan Pepiot and Luis Castillo yesterday, and they shoved. Ryan Pepiot throwing 6 perfect innings was fantastic and as efficient as it can get. Luis Castillo, not so efficient with 4 walks, but he did get 8 strikeouts and 6 shutout innings. So you're very welcome. We will just ignore when we don't do well, but we will absolutely brag when we do well. Some fine fantasy options, I think, going on Friday night. Are some of the names that you're looking at today?
Yeah, love a full slate. Really get to pick it out. Well, I guess we're ignoring the game at Wrigley Field, but in
Yes.
general, 14 games on the main slate for this Friday night. Kodai Senga at the Twins. I mentioned earlier paying up for Senga. Like the optimizer loves him among the top pitching options on this slate, and you can see why. Facing a Twins team that strikes out more than any other team by a pretty wide margin. It's crazy that they're leading the American League Central with how anemic that offense can be at times. Senga racked up 12 strikeouts over 7 innings of 1-run ball in his last turn through the Mets rotation against your Mariners.
Yeah.
That was on September 1st. And he does usually get like a day of extra rest between starts. That's been happening more often than not this year, but he's on especially extra rest for this one. So I like that aspect. And the start before that outing against Seattle, he put up 10 strikeouts in 6 2/3 innings against the Angels. This has been a really good debut major league season for the 30-year-old out of Japan, who should command some NL Rookie of the Year love, even as Corbin Carroll gets the large majority of the votes, at least the first place votes. Senga's posted a 3.08 ERA with 176 strikeouts through his first 143 and a third big league innings. A lot has certainly gone wrong for the Mets this season, and they're going to have an interesting offseason, but that 5-year, $75 million commitment to Senga seems like a smart and good thing in the short term and the long term. He has not faced the Twins yet, but I think he's going to have a fun time in doing so on Friday at Minnesota. Lots of swing and miss potential there, and man, he could really eat it up and just rack up fantasy scoring points.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. Is he second, by the way, for Rookie of the Year at this point?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I'd have to really dig into it. We can include that on a show next week and break down the Rookie of the Year awards. In the NL, though, I mean, it's spoken for. There'd be no reason to like place a play on anyone other than Carroll. Like he's missed some time, and it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. The numbers are just too good. And the fact, while voters may say it doesn't, the fact that he plays on a team that is probably going to the postseason isn't going to hurt him either. I'm going to go with a couple of young lefties. I'm going to go with Andrew Abbott pitching against, and it's Andrew. We know it's not Drew. We know it's Andrew Abbott pitching against the Cardinals. Had a couple of shaky starts at the end of August, but bounced back really nicely against the Cubs on Saturday. 6 1/3 innings of 1-run baseball with 5 strikeouts and 2 walks. August ERA of 6.08, which actually doesn't bother me that much. Like, get those struggles out of the way in August. I'm good with that. There's going to be some regression to the mean. And the fact that he's playing against a not very good St. Louis team right now gives him a chance to pick up that W, Give me 6 innings of 2-run baseball with around 6 or 7 strikeouts, and at a price that is not going to break your bank and gives you a chance to add either another really good starting pitcher or maybe a couple of fantasy quality guys at the top of the lineup. I like that a lot. And then I'm also going to take the risk with Kyle Harrison. Look, there's been a very short time. You've seen the best of Kyle Harrison and you have seen the with Kyle Harrison. But there is no denying that this dude can miss bats. Like the type of starter that can give you multiple double-digit strikeouts in a month. That type of stuff with that fastball and slider. Colorado is just not a very good baseball team. I will take the chance with Kyle Harrison to have a big night. It might be a little bit of a contrarian play because he didn't look great in that last start. We like contrarian plays here, so I will go ahead and go with Kyle Harrison in this one.
Yeah, you get that Rockies lineup out of Coors Field.
Yes.
You got to attack it. I did look up the NL Rookie of the Year odds because I'm just a curious Drew.
Yes.
And Drew.
Not a curious Andrew.
That's right. Corbin Carroll is minus 10,000. Kodai Senga is second at plus 2,200. Spencer Steer at plus 8,000. James Outman at plus 20,000. So you get the picture there. My other starting pitcher that I'm going to recommend is Yusei Kikuchi versus the Royals. This is more of a mid-tier play on the board in terms of the cost, but it's a pretty elite matchup for Kikuchi and a chance to bounce back after he struggled at Coors Field in his previous turn in the Blue Jays rotation. Overall this year for Kikuchi, a 3.63 ERA with 152 strikeouts and 143 and 2/3 innings. Kansas City doesn't actually strike out as much as you'd think without, digging into some numbers, but there also isn't very much hard hitting going on in that lineup. The 25th ranked offense in combined team OPS. I'm liking a bounce back for Kikuchi now that he's settled back to sea level. This game is in Toronto. He faced the Royals. Well, that was like on the opening week of the season. It was back in early April. Worked 5 innings of 1-run ball. Going to be licking his chops to get another opportunity at him. I credit Kikuchi for sticking in the Blue Jays rotation essentially all year. Remember, he was having a battle for one of those final few spots in the spring. This is a big series for the Blue Jays. It's a big weekend for obviously any contender or would-be contender. Toronto, though, currently has that third AL wildcard spot by only a half-game edge on the Rangers. I see them, motivation, any kind of narrative you want. I think Kikuchi has a really good outing, in a good chance for a win. He's going to pitch deep into the game to preserve their bullpen. I think it really all comes together for him to be a pretty good value among the starting pitching options on this Friday slate.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, especially with the fact that, one of Kikuchi's biggest issues can be that not always a great strike thrower, but you're facing a lineup that does not walk. Like they are allergic to them. They're going to be free swingers. So that's less of an issue. Question in the chat is, what do you guys think of Bradish at Boston tonight? I think that's an interesting option. He's been effective. Boston lineup hasn't looked spectacular. They're fighting for they're kind of out of this thing if you ask me, just because of how many teams they have to overcome. But I think that's an interesting second one. I'd want to pair him with somebody who's going to give me a little more strikeouts, a little more upside, but I think you can justify it.
Yeah, I don't hate it as a second if you're playing in a two slate kind of form or two starter kind of format to pair him with a Kodai Senga or even Blake Snell. The optimizer kind of likes Blake Snell. It's a big cost to pay up for him, but he could win NL Cy Young, which is kind of crazy in a year that has just been awful for the Padres if they actually get a Cy Young Award winner out of this. The optimizer really likes George Kirby, a guy we didn't talk about. And maybe some Taj Bradley, maybe racking up some strikeouts against your Mariners. But those are actually the top 2 pitchers in terms of ownership percentage and potential value is George Kirby and Taj Bradley.
It makes sense. I will say that as somebody who's watched George Kirby, he has not looked particularly great in the last few outings. A little bit of regression to the mean, but a good bounce back category. And Seattle obviously offers a ton of swing and miss. just put Eugenio Suarez down for 2 strikeouts right now. I still love you, Gino, and keep playing that great defense. Let's take a look at some options that aren't where we're not going to be stacking, some maybe cheaper options that we can take a look at. Anybody really stand out? I will say this. The one that immediately stood out as I'm looking at this on the Contrarian Optimizer, and make sure you use that promo code in the bottom to get a free trial of it. We cannot recommend this thing enough. It is so effective. It is so easy to use. Definitely go check that out. And again, a reminder that the Sportstopia.io website is live. I'm just going to promote the heck out of that every time I can because it is awesome stuff. But Brandon Drury, I like that option a lot as a right-handed bat going up against a southpaw tonight. I think that can be a really nice play. How about you, Drew? Anybody really stand out?
Harrison Bader really sticks out. Revenge game, facing the Cardinals, facing a left-hander. For all of Bader's flaws, and there are a lot, but he still plays excellent defense in center field, and he rakes left-handed pitching. And the Reds have used him like in a direct platoon. He's gotten in the lineup against some righties with Hunter Renfroe being sidelined, and they have some other outfield injuries, but they're pretty much just playing him against left-handed pitching. And if you have the luxury to do that, I don't know if the Reds actually do, but it's the way to utilize Harrison Bader is like just facing lefties and as a defensive replacement. And he's really cheap. He could bat sort of high in the order in that one too. I mentioned Evan Carter earlier. If he does get into the lineup, and these teams have been aggressive with these like AA call-ups, and the Rangers need him. I think it's a safe bet that Evan Carter is going to start in his first major league game. Let's roll the dice there at a cheap price to fill an outfield spot. And yeah, I mean, baseball's hard, but over the last few weeks, like some of these September call-ups have fared pretty well in their first game. And maybe Evan Carter can do the same. Alejandro Kirk is relatively inexpensive at catcher, pressed into everyday action for the Blue Jays as Danny Jansen recovers from a fractured finger. Kirk's had a really disappointing season. I liked him a lot in season-long leagues. He has not come through, but he can run into some big hits against who's even starting for the Royals? Colin Snyder. So kind of a bullpen game. The optimizer likes a Blue Jays stack too. That's a decent route. Just go. You say Kikuchi and a bunch of Blue Jays hitters. I think you could be in pretty good shape. Really cheap outfield option, Ramon Laureano. If he gets into the Guardians lineup against the Angels, Laureano still offers a bit of power and speed. It's not as plentiful as it was in his prime, but there's scoring potential in his skill set, and the Guardians have kind of had to play him recently. Another inexpensive option if you need help covering some of those outfield spots.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Brent Rooker also, I think, is an interesting option. A good chance to hit a homer tonight against Jordan Montgomery and the lefties. We're not recommending A's too often on the show, if we're being completely honest with you, but I do think that is an interesting play. One more time before we go, please go to sportstopia.io and check everything out. We've got a bunch of stuff already up there. We've got week 1 dynasty rankings or week 1 rankings for NFL stuff. There's dynasty stuff, I'm sure, as well. We're going to be having a ton of content. I'm going to be putting up a prize pick article looking at some overs and unders that'll be up shortly this afternoon. There's just a ton of great stuff. And a reminder, it is sportstopia.io is the way to check that out. Thanks everyone so much for joining us today. You can follow us on whatever they're calling that website now. I'm at Crawford_MILB. Drew is at Drew Silva. We really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Good luck with all of your picks, and we will see you soon.